Let's watch Michael Moore go from excited to disappointed about the election. Most of these clips are going to be right around the election night itself. We're going to start with one, though, from around the time Joe Biden dropped out and Kamala entered the race. There's some very interesting storylines throughout the video, but let's take a look.
I'm not frightened by Donald Trump. There's no reason that he should ever go back into the Oval Office again. We live in a very different country now, different from even the 8 years ago when he was first elected. Elected thanks in part to Michigan, because the candidate, the Democratic Party, yes, okay, yes, that bad. The shame is still hanging over me, but as a Michigander, but the candidate.
So one thing that's interesting, Michael Moore, remember back in 2016, he actually predicted a Trump victory.
I'm sorry to have to kind of be the buzzkill here so early on, but I think Trump is going to win. I'm sorry.
A millionaire has the same number of votes as the person without a job. 1. And there's more of the former middle class than there are in the millionaire class. So on November 8th, the dispossessed will walk into the voting booth, be handed a ballot, close the curtain, and take that lever, or felt pen or touchscreen, and put a big fucking X in the box by the name of the man who has threatened to upend and overturn the very system that has ruined their lives. Donald J. Trump.
But Michael Moore's correct prediction in 2016 probably gets canceled out by how incorrect he was in 2024. As you'll see in this video, we'll carry on.
And her campaign made a decision in 2016 to not visit Michigan, to not visit Wisconsin. And we lost Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, and that was the whole difference right there. And now any analyst that you look at for this year's election says, and Michelle Goldberg wrote an excellent column in the New York Times, where she said, essentially, you lose Michigan, you lose the White House. Critical. We're talking about 300,000 Arab and or Muslim voters in the state of Michigan. Biden won the Arab Muslim vote in Michigan by more than 60% in 2020. The last poll I saw from 2 weeks ago, less than 15% of the Arab Muslim vote in Michigan will vote at that
we
point.
saw
for
that
Joe Biden.
in the uncommitted vote in the.
So that's actually another interesting story here. I think probably somewhat of an underreported thing, how well Donald Trump did with Muslims in Michigan. It's actually incredible. We'll get to that in a second, but again, there's so many storylines around 2024. How well he did in Michigan with Muslims is outstanding. Okay, so now we're less than a month. You can see on screen there, 29 days away. Let's see what Michael Moore is saying here.
I honestly think we're going to have one of our largest turnouts ever. I don't think that many people are going to stay home. I certainly hope not, because of everything that's at stake. But this happens every time with Democrats, because Democrats, they're such a frightened group of people. People, they still think that Trump is going to win. This is kind of shocking to me. Like, don't you live with people? Are you not?
Why would they think Trump is going to win?
He has the White House, the Senate, the House.
Totally agree.
Court, the popular vote.
Not aware that there's going to be a tsunami of women voting between now and Election Day? That they were told 2.5 years ago that they no longer control their own bodies. They no longer have a say. If they get pregnant, an unplanned pregnancy, the law now is that in many of our states that you have to have that baby, and if we have to do whatever we have to do, sort of the legal version of strapping you down to the table until you birth that baby, then so be it. That's the law of the land now. And anybody who thinks that women are going to stay home, that women are going to tolerate this, do you not know any women? Do you not live with a woman? Is there a next door neighbor? Is there somebody you could just go ask them? So what do you think about my gender here?
Just an ice cold take if you look at the numbers. I'm only going to do this top part here, but check this out. Women voted for the Democratic candidate, but by smaller margins. Women did indeed show support for Kamala, but in smaller numbers than her Democratic predecessors. Hillary Clinton won by 13, Biden by 15. Harris secured them by 10 points, so it didn't align with what Michael Moore was going on about there. I've also seen information online that shows that gap even smaller than 10%, but now we are here just a day or two before the election.
You know, I don't want to go back to 2016, but you obviously predicted at the time that Trump would win. Last month, you wrote Trump is toast. We're almost 48 hours out from perhaps seeing our first results, but do you stand behind that today?
Oh, even more so. I just keep wondering the gift that the Trump campaign keeps giving us. I don't think they realize, I don't think they really are in touch with where the majority of Americans are at. The majority of Americans do not want this divisiveness. They don't want a threat of violence.
What a take. What happened with the majority of Americans?
So let's look at that. For all of the talk about the polling ties, in the end, this is a pretty decisive victory for Donald Trump. Take us inside it.
Yeah, a couple ways to look at it, Savannah. You see some of these battlegrounds still, Michigan, Nevada, Arizona, not called. Trump is ahead in all three of those. There's a very good chance Trump is going to go 7 for 7 in the core battleground states. But big states like New York. Now, Kamala Harris is going to win here by about 11 points, but just check out what this is in terms of a difference from 2020. That's cut in half from Joe Biden's margin. If you looked inside New York City here, especially the working class areas, the outer boroughs of New York City.
The Bronx.
There you go. Some major gains for Trump there that have really kind of been unthinkable for Republicans for a long time. You see it, too, these kinds of gains in a state like New Jersey. You see it in a state like Maryland. They're still blue, but they're a lot less blue. You see it in a state like Illinois. Look at this one, 51-47. We're over 90% of the vote. And Harris is going to win. She's not winning like Joe Biden did just 4 years ago. 17 points right there. So you start getting those gains for Donald Trump in those big blue states. I mean, that adds up to millions of votes. That's why he has this popular vote advantage. That's why I think there's a very good chance he's going to end up winning the popular vote for the first time. And it would be the first time in 20 years since George W. Bush, 2004, that a Republican has won the national popular vote.
We are okay to disagree with each other, but that's where it ends. We go to vote. Who wins, wins. Half the time I've been very happy with who's won, and the other half of the time I haven't been. And we move on with our lives. But they actually believe that we don't like immigrants. We are immigrants. We are all the children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren of immigrants, unless you are African American.
Like, dude, story fairy tale time is over. Come on. I'm not that familiar with Michael Moore's work, but I think he's got to be better than that. The fairy tale stuff, oh, we're all immigrants. Just take that back to like whatever. That shouldn't be a political discussion. You're just trying to elicit emotion, this cutesy thing. Come on, dude. Talk about policy. Don't just try to throw away like little fairy tale statements like that don't mean anything. Bumper sticker stuff.
Or unless you're amongst the first peoples that were here. We are all the product of immigrants, and we love our grandparents and our great-grandparents and the people that got us here to this great country. And to talk about immigrants in this vicious, vile way, and you think of all the things that we have.
You've got to come up with something better than that, man. Jeez.
And we've given the world, and the anger and hatred toward Muslims and Arabs. Steve Jobs. I mean, no, but this never gets discussed. Maybe I'm just a trivia nerd, but he's born of Muslim parents. His parents were Arab, and they put him up for adoption. They had to put him up for adoption, and was adopted.
Who is saying that immigrants don't create great things? This is just like the ultimate straw man. Again, his take back in 2016. I didn't agree with the exact framing of it, but it's pretty reasonable. Now he's just coming up with, what are you talking about, dude? Who thinks this? Who's like the mega supporter that just thinks, oh, immigrants or the children of immigrants don't create great things? Hello, Elon Musk, the richest person in the world, immigrant.
By the Jobs family.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be talking to you maybe on this device right now in this way, without this offspring of a Muslim or an Arab. And I think most Americans, we get down on our knees and thank God that we are.
Again, the offspring of a Muslim or an Arab, people like that are capable of creating good things. Who is he talking to here? Again, this is just a very weird argument.
are the children of immigrants, that we are built this country with immigrants. And the fact that we have somewhere, depending on what
This is comedy, man. Wow.
numbers you want to believe in, somewhere between 9 million and 11 million jobs right now that we do not have enough people to fill. We have upwards to 11 million unfilled jobs, and as we are told, we have maybe 11 million immigrants who aren't here legally. Geez, doesn't that just, if you have a heart, if you have love in you, if you're proud of this country that was built by immigrants, doesn't somewhere in your head go, geez, we need 11 million jobs filled. We have 11 million people that need citizenship. Why don't we go there? Well, I do. And I think a lot of people are like me. And I think that they are going to be very surprised. I'm talking about the Trump people.
Again, just a fairy tale thing. Do the skills match. And that's not like a reason to just not have a border on your country. That's not a reason for the incentivizing illegal immigration. Again, even if he's accurate on those numbers, there's way more to it than what he is saying. Obviously, these are obvious things I'm saying.
Yeah.
And the MAGA nation, by what's going to happen on Tuesday. Not only do I feel, to answer your question 10 minutes later, that I feel the same way that I felt a few weeks ago that Trump is toast. Absolutely. I feel it more. Now, I know I don't want to.
Trump is toast. Yes. Again, Michael Moore had a good take in 16. He called the election correctly. His take in 24 might be just bad enough, I think, that it kind of offsets. So now he's pretty much batting 500. I guess you could argue that's probably better than the traditional media person. They probably bat under 500, especially on their takes with regard to the election. A lot of these pundits on air seem to just be wrong very consistently. But, I mean, Michael Moore's 24 kind of canceled out the 16 prediction.
Say it too loudly because our work isn't done.
Right.
We all have doors to knock on tomorrow. We all have to make sure we get people to vote. I've asked everybody to think of 3 people that maybe they know at work or school or whatever that aren't going to vote, to get them to the polls, drive them to the polls, take them to lunch afterwards, have a party after work, after you've taken the office to go vote. We have work to do in these 48 hours. But having said that, I'm very optimistic and hopeful, and frankly, I know people watching this, Mike, how can you say that?
Yeah.
You know, we have all these crazy people and all the Trumpsters and MAGA Nation. And what I say to them is, honestly, I have a lot of personal, deep faith in my fellow Americans.
Yeah, and it's definitely
they're going to do the right thing.
The Fox News decision desk can now officially project that Donald Trump will become the 47th president of the United States.
The former president's comeback will be complete with a win in Wisconsin, a state that he narrowly lost 4 years ago. He is now the second president in U.S. history to win non-consecutive terms. The first was Grover Cleveland in the late 1800s. Senator J.D. Vance will become the 50th vice president.
Give me a sense of what you anticipate happening in Michigan on Tuesday.
Well, when Biden was running.
So now we get to the part of the Arab vote that I mentioned at the beginning of the video in Michigan. Take a look.
There in the early summer, support for Biden-Harris, which was at 70% 4 years ago, they got 70% of the Michigan Arab Muslim vote, was down to 12% because of Biden endorsing, embracing, and enabling the slaughter of tens of thousands of civilians. I don't know anybody watching this, whether you're Irish, whatever group you're part of, if you were Jewish, just pick the group, and your tax dollars were going to kill the cousins, the relatives, the friends, the neighbors of where you came from. What do you think the people of Detroit and Dearborn are going to do with that? Well, the good news is Biden stepped aside, Kamala Harris came in, and that 12% support of Biden-Harris jumped to over 43%. That's good news, but it's still quite a bit behind the 70% they had 4 years ago. So we're estimating in Michigan, possibly we need 40,000 votes of the 40,000 Arab and Muslim Americans they're not going to vote for Trump. I mean, he already has.
I don't know about that. We'll see in a second.
1/3 of the vote. He'll get 1/3 of it this time. Not anymore.
Let's see how that aged. So this article here, MSNBC, how Trump won the biggest Arab American majority city in America. Starting off here, I'm just going to read a little bit of this. After a strong show of support for Joe Biden and against Donald Trump in the 2020 election, the Arab and Muslim American communities in the swing state of Michigan and around the country swung decisively in the other direction. Then check this out here. In the largest Arab American majority city in the country, Dearborn, that's in Michigan, Trump beat Harris 42.5 to 36%. Okay, so that's it for building up to the election. I'm going to show this short clip and then one more just after for fun.
So this is his first time breaking his silence since the election ended. Let's see what he says. So title is this. Hey, if you can kill 20 million Native Americans, enslave 12 million Africans, and let Biden fund the slaughter of 40,000 women, children, and elderly, of course you can install a rapist, felon, fascist as your president. In the meantime, breathe, take care of yourself, read a good book. So coming out the gates hot, bro.
Tell us how you really feel, right?
He is coming out the gates hot. He says, if you stop to think about it, we've come up with a lot of doozies in our history, like the genocide of 20 million Native Americans or the enslavement of 12 million kidnapped Africans or us invading Vietnam and killing 4 million.
And then look at that in bold there. We are not a good people. Like, geez, man. Clearly not impressed that Trump won again. Okay, final clip here. I'm playing this because normally at this part of the video, I like to show a funny moment of the person being triggered, being like, oh, Trump won, what the heck? I don't think Michael Moore has done much media, if at all, like on camera following the election. So I'll play this as just kind of the fun moment, but this is following the 2016 election. So it's not exact, but it's an entertaining clip. Let's take a look.
Now that he's been president for about 7 months, has he met your expectations? Like, is this what you thought? I mean, high or low expectations? This is what you thought it was going to be like.
I am amazed I knew we would get hit a lot by all the things he was going to do. I did not expect a daily, hourly fire hose of in our face. I mean, it was just...
So I think it's clear to say in 2016 and in 2024, Michael Moore not impressed that Trump won, but the difference in this time, his prediction was just so much worse than back in 16. So anyway, with that said, I'll finish the video. Thank you very much for watching. Like and subscribe, leave a comment. I will see you in the next one.